Hello and welcome to another episode of AWS Data and AI Bytes, a show where we bring you real-world stories about modern applications right from the people that make it possible. And today I have with me Joey Capper, Director of Engineering at Elliptic, a blockchain analytics company that helps businesses and governments detect and prevent financial crime in crypto. Thanks for joining us today.
It's great to be here. At Elliptic, we develop powerful crypto compliance tools as well as sophisticated crypto intelligence tools that help our customers, such as finance institutions, crypto businesses, and law enforcement, detect the risk of crypto entities on-chain. Be that, for example, screening a single wallet and looking for the source and destination of funds, or trying to understand the risk associated with a particular transaction, our goal is to help our customers get to the heart of risk in the crypto ecosystem. I think probably one of the biggest challenges for us is that we've seen immense growth over the last 4 or 5 years, both in terms of the amount of on-chain volume, the amount of transactions that are confirmed every day, as well as within compliance and crypto compliance in particular. For example, I think perhaps 4 or 5 years ago, where crypto compliance may have been seen as a sort of nice to have, it's certainly the case today that crypto compliance sits very much on the critical path for many in the ecosystem and many of our customers. And so that's why we chose DynamoDB to sit at the heart of our infrastructure.
And in terms of the volume of transactions, are you thinking, would it be millions or billions of transactions? That's impressive scale. What made DynamoDB the choice for you?
Yeah, it's a great question. We looked at quite a few different database technologies several years ago when we were surveying the landscape, and DynamoDB stood out as a pretty obvious choice. I think probably the most important consideration is the volume of transactions that we process. So we're looking at processing billions of transactions every month. That's many, many millions a day. And coupled with this, you also need to think about the historical storage, of which we have many terabytes of data. Performance is also a key indicator. So while we have pretty tight constraints at the ingestion point, the wide end of the funnel, bringing the data in, we also need to make that data available to our customers with very low latency requirements, very promptly, perhaps a few seconds or maybe even just a few minutes after the confirmation of the transaction. Part of the challenge that we face is that we need to look both very broadly at the activity on chain. So that might mean, for example, looking at an entity with many hundreds or thousands of counterparties and assessing the risk across all of those. But we also need to go very deep as well. So this challenge essentially involves looking at long chains of transactions. Perhaps an illicit entity has inserted many of these transactions between the wallet of interest and the illicit activity in order to obfuscate that trail. And so it's a bit of a dual-edged sword here, where we're trying to tackle both depth and breadth. And so we picked DynamoDB because it allowed us to structure our data in such a way as to tackle both of those problems.
So a lot of scale and low latency access at that scale, that sits well with DynamoDB as well. Can you dive deeper into one of the systems that powers the platform that uses DynamoDB at Elliptic?
Yeah, absolutely. I think probably one of the biggest challenges, if you were to speak to our engineers, is developing our holistic graph. So this is essentially a graph that shows all of the aggregate value flow across all time between entities on chain. So you can perhaps imagine the wallets are addresses or clusters of addresses, and the edges between them are the total amount of value, crypto value, that has flowed between those wallets over time. In some cases, we may have wallets that have very little activity. Perhaps they've just sent crypto a few times, all the way up to very large entities, so these huge centralized exchanges that may have many millions of counterparties and billions of transactions. So there's a lot of skew in the data as well. And so DynamoDB helped us with this because it allows us to structure that data and capture that graph in a way that's also very easy to update. So it's not sufficient for us to pre-compute the risk or to look at the risk, say, only once every 24 hours or once every 6 hours. We need instead to be able to see a real-time snapshot of what's going on. You can certainly imagine that if we had gaps in our coverage, if it took us even half an hour to make that risk judgment, then the criminals will already have moved out those illicit funds forward. And so real-time updates were really quite essential for the performance of this system.
So I'm guessing that DynamoDB being fully serverless and fully managed gives your engineering team more time to focus on these features and functionalities instead of managing the infrastructure itself.
100%, yeah, it's a very good point. One of our sort of engineering philosophies at Elliptic is that our intelligence is always available. And I sort of see this as having two prongs. The first one is you can't claim to have available intelligence if you don't have good availability and reliability of the underlying services. We chose DynamoDB because it has excellent uptime and excellent availability. The second prong as well is you can't claim to be serving your intelligence and it always being available if you can't scale to meet the demands of your customers. So we see quite seasonal usage, for example, of our data. That might mean crypto businesses coming online and crypto users doing trades at a particular time of day. Or it might be actually something like a crypto bull run where we see pretty significant elevated usage of crypto for perhaps a 3, 6, 9 month period. And so in order for us to keep those data points of intelligence, of which we have billions, available for analysis to our customers, that means being able to flex and expand accordingly with that demand.
What's next at Elliptic in terms of AWS or DynamoDB usage?
It's a great question. We already talked a little bit about scale, and I think that's probably the headline for us. Elliptic currently supports around 50 blockchains. We support transfers for tens of thousands of token contracts, as well as supporting transfers between networks. So this might be through a bridge or something like that. It's very impressive that we've managed to get to where we are today, and I think in part because of DynamoDB. But I don't see that trajectory slowing down. In fact, if anything, I think we're going to see an increase in scale and an increase in adoption. DynamoDB lets us serve that Web3 scale. So I fully expect that Elliptic is going to be the first company to add, for example, the 100th blockchain, or the 100,000th token contract, or maybe the 500th bridge. We'll see. And in particular, we do have an initiative that we're working on at the moment, which is to add support automatically for new contract addresses so that no explicit support is required. And to do this is definitely going to require a serious step up in both storage volume, but also throughput and confirming those transactions on chain. Another really important part for us is being able to use this holistic graph in ways that don't immediately address that problem of tracing risk. So this might be, for example, running analytical queries. We use DynamoDB in concert with DynamoDB Streams, with Firehose, and with things like Athena and Glue in order to build up a catalog and a view of that graph that lets us run these analytical and more sophisticated queries on top of the data as well. I think without that, it'd be really challenging for us to build that data set up independently.
And look forward to the growth that Elliptic achieves with AWS and DynamoDB. That might be a good point to wrap it up. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
If you found this insightful, give it a like and share it with your fellow tech enthusiasts. And keep watching AWS Data and AI Bytes.